Welcome, everybody. It's Marcie Thomas, founder of the Live Well Sister podcast or broadcast, I should say. And I'm super excited to be with you all this evening to share a couple of folks that feel like friends because we've talked more than once, and I actually know Wanda personally, so I'm really super excited to have them on tonight. So come on in the room. You can let us know where you're joining us from. I am on the outskirts of Atlanta, GA, and actually both of these ladies are in Georgia as well. So this is going to be a peachy good time tonight. So now, by means of introduction, I'm going to go ahead and tell you who we have with us. We have Tina McElroy Ansa and Wanda Lloyd, who are longtime friends, Spelmanites. I am not, but I'm representing tonight by wearing one of my Spelman shirts. And they are longtime friends, authors, journalists, and co-hosts and co-executive producers of the Two Old Chicks Who Know a Lot of Shit. Yeah, I said shit. Podcast. So they met while they were students together at Spelman back in 1967, were roommates, found out they weren't necessarily the best roommates, but they have become lifelong friends. Tina is the award-winning author of 5 novels, including Baby of the Family, Ugly Ways, and The Hands I Fan With, all set in the fictional town of Mulberry, which was influenced by Macon, Georgia, where she's originally from. She is the founder of the Sea Island Writers Retreat, and also she founded Down South Press. Wanda spent more than 40 years as an editor and leader at 7 daily newspapers, including the Washington Post and USA Today, retired as executive editor of the Montgomery Advisor in Alabama. She returned to Savannah to accept the position of chair and associate professor in the Department of Journalism and Mass Communications at Savannah State University, which is when and where I actually met her. So together they have a great story to share about their friendship, about their podcast, about their book that they co-edited, Meeting at the Table. Hope y'all can see that. I know it's kind of a glare, and just a lot of wonderful things. So I just want to welcome to the space Wanda and Tina. Welcome.
Hey, Marcie.
Hey, I'm super excited. Hey, super excited to see you ladies tonight. So it looks like we've got somebody. Oh, I know. Celestial is in the room from St. Mary's. Yes.
Hey, Celestial.
She's our
school girl.
Yes, and Kitra from Savannah. So
Kitra, yeah.
Kitra, okay. Well, welcome. And I was gonna bring her up anyway. Her pen name is Benguni. I have actually interviewed her before. She told me when I met her, Tina, that you were her mentor. So this is her book.
This is Celestial, yeah.
Yes, Looking for Hope. And then also one of your Spelman sisters, Courtney Duke Foster, I interviewed her last year about
her.
Yes, you recommended her. So I just wanted to share those things right quick. So, our relationship goes beyond just what's happening tonight. And of course, Wanda, you were one of my first guests when we talked about your coming full circle. See, I got them all.
Got them all.
I got all of them. So welcome. So I guess I really want tonight to kind of talk about your work individually and collectively, and just about friendship, because, for those who watch, we're here to see the beginning. This show talks about a lot of different things. Relationships is one of those things. And the fact that you two have had a long time friendship is very powerful, because a lot of times people think, oh, women don't get along, all these things that we hear that aren't true. But you all have proven that that's the case. Yeah. So let's.
I have to tell you, Marcie, Wanda and I aren't the only ones. You just said that circle of sisterhood. That Wanda and I always reaching out. We have little schoolgirls, or what we call our children, or our little schoolgirls, and we reach out. And kind of, Marcie, when you invited us here, I know that I had talked with you before, but Wanda was so. Well, we were on her show before, and she explained who you were, and this is a good one. I mean, she was just I love that. I love that we love each other and that we support each other. This is living well, just like your show says. It's good living.
Yes, and I just hate that I moved before we had a chance to do lunch, because we were supposed to do that, but then pandemic. And then I moved to Atlanta, but my mom still lives in the area, so I'll be back. We can
Okay. Yeah. Well, let us know.
hang out.
Tina is prone to pop up here anytime in Savannah.
I tell you, I'm in Savannah more than I'm in Brunswick. Okay.
Yeah, my mom is actually in Hinesville.
I live on St. Simon's Island, which
Right.
is 80 miles south of Savannah.
Yeah.
And Wanda is, but we talk so much, we may as well be next door.
Right.
Right.
Hey, Tina, turn your sound up a little bit because I can hardly hear your voice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was saying my mom is in between the two. She's in Hinesville, so yeah. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you met.
Georgia girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you all meet, or how did that go when you all first connected?
Well, I'll start because back in the day when there was no internet, we got a letter from Spelman. We each got a letter from Spelman saying you have been assigned to roommates, and so I had her name and they sent each of us our addresses. So we really communicated by letter once or twice during the summer, and then we actually met the day we moved into the dorm. So I got there first because my Aunt Catherine brought me on the plane. She was a caregiver for her husband. And so she had to get in early and get back to Savannah as quickly as possible. So I was there early, and then Tina and her family drove in from Macon. And so when Tina came in, I had the room pretty much set up, and Tina was like, Lord have mercy.
She had bought curtains. She had bought spreads and put them on the bed, put the curtains up. What's the pattern again, Wanda?
It was buffalo plaid. It was the ugliest thing you'd ever want.
Buffalo plaid, black and red. And I was thinking, what the heck? And also my older sister Faye, was 3 years ahead of me, and she was at Spelman. And I had gone to a pre-college program at Morehouse Spelman Pre-College, and I kind of knew the routine. You got there, you met your roommate, then y'all walked down to West End, because West End was our little shopping area. There you walked down, and then you chose your stuff together, and then you came back, or you went downtown. Girl, I walked in. I should have known right then. That's the story of our lives.
I was an only child. I didn't have
already put up curtains.
I didn't have any role models. I didn't know that stuff. I didn't know anything about college. I just showed up.
But at least she could have included me in the pattern choice, Marcie, don't you think? But
but she didn't know. I'll give her a little grace since she didn't know.
well, as Wanda just said, we looked real good on paper. We were both from mid-sized towns. We were both from Georgia, Southern girls. Our parents both owned businesses. We were both English majors. It was just really good. But girl, like oil and water. She wanted to go up at night because she couldn't breathe. I was freezing. She would get up early and go. You went to breakfast every morning.
I did.
Girl, I was just crawling into bed, having been up playing bid whist all night.
All right,
Down the hall.
It was awful. It was awful. We have a running list of things that we're opposites in. I mean, it's just an endless list. And and one was Wanda did her assignments as soon as who does their assignment as soon as they get it.
Okay, so we were both. One thing I think they matched us because we were both English majors,
right?
So we had the same classes, the same professors, and the same assignments. And so when we got the assignment, I would say, "Come on, Tina, let's go to the library. Let's start doing our research. Let's knock this out." And Tina would spend if it was a 2-week assignment, because it often was, because you like read a book, a book report or do some research. And Tina was down the hall playing bid whist every night. And I was in the room studying and reading and highlighting pages and typing my little paper. And then Tina would come in the night before the paper was due and keep the lights on all night because she was trying to get her work done. Yeah. And I was ready to go to sleep.
I would say I was probably more like Tina. Not so much the bid whist part, but the waiting to the last minute part. That would have been me.
Yeah. Well, we're total opposites, and we were smart enough not to room together the next year. And we were friends. We were part of our little group of 9 and everything. But we knew that we could not live together. Wanda made her bed first thing in the morning. I was like, I'm just gonna get back in it in a few hours. What am I making my bed for? So Wanda, oh gosh, she was a wonderful member of the Glee Club, and I'm tone deaf. I make people laugh when I sing. I mean, we are just completely opposites. But we found out that staying in our own lane, we could still do our work. Wanda could be a wonderful journalist. I could be a wonderful novelist. And we just supported each other in everything that we did up until now. But we had never worked together. In 50 something years, we had never, in the same business, we had never worked together.
But Tina, as you know, Tina's a novelist. She has 5 best-selling novels.
Yes.
And every novel she had, and I lived in 8 states for my career because I worked at several newspapers and a couple of universities before I came to Savannah State. And so every time Tina would publish a novel, I would have a party for her, whether it was at my house or in the newspaper building somewhere in that city. There would be a party for Tina. And so we stayed in touch mostly along those lines because I was following her writing. You know, the first couple of books, she had a little Wanda character in there. It wasn't me, but it was a name, you know, somebody named Wanda. But I was always anxious to host her, the book party. And our husbands became friends. We both were married. Her husband, Tina's husband, passed away in 2020, but they were married more than 40 years. I've been married almost 48 years now. And so our husbands are so much alike, and they loved each other.
They loved each other.
Yeah.
I would go there. Wanda would be lying in her bed like 2:00 in the morning. I'd be lying in what I call my room in Wanda's house, and we could hear the guys looking at old cowboy movies.
Wow.
Betting if they didn't remember. All right. What about this one? I bet you don't remember this one. And I just lie there and laugh. And Wanda told me I did the same. She did the same thing. She says I was just lying in bed laughing at them, but they were having so much fun. You know, Wanda and Willie Lloyd were the couple where everybody liked each other. You know, you have that one couple where you like the guy and we all liked each other. So any combination, we were happy. We could have fun and be family. You know, Wanda's been so close. Wanda and Willie Lloyd have been so close to me since Janae died. You know, I had him for 40 something years, and I really didn't know, you know, kind of the way forward. And quite frankly, I was sort of coming out of it. People on the island, this is the island, like the country, okay? I live on a dirt road. They gave me about 2 good months to be by myself, to, you know, mourn, do whatever I wanted to. I actually you want to know what Wanda said to me?
What she said?
I just couldn't deal with anybody after Shanae. I had to really, really process it. You know,
understandable.
It's a big part of my life. We were partners. We worked together, and so I put a sign on the front door, and it was a very nice sign. I wrote it in green so people would know it was me. And I said, you know, I know y'all love me, but please, just, you know, I can't right now. You know, so you know, leave me alone.
So one day I talked to Tina. One day I talked to Tina, and she said, no, you know how I thought people bring people casseroles when people die and stuff. And I said, Tina, you had a sign on the door that says, leave me alone. How can they bring you a casserole?
You know what Wanda said? Wanda said, you can't put a sign up telling people to stay away and expect them to bring you a cake or a casserole.
Right, exactly. But I just think that that's really powerful, just to hear that story and to hear how your husband's connected and all of that. Because, well, my best friend, we've been best friends since we were 8 years old. So we've got about 48 years in the game. So, you know, that's cool. But it's different because we started as children, you know, and kind of moved ahead from there. So that is a little bit different, but it just, you know, speaks to the fact that, yes, you know, we can have those true friends that stick with us. You know, she and I are very different. So, you know, I just think that it's really powerful. I talked to her earlier today, and I'm like, I'm talking to some people who have been friends longer than we have. So let's just talk a little bit about your work and your careers. Of course, you started out in school together, and, you know, we're in the English program. And, you know, I know that both of you spent time as journalists as well. I'm going to start with you, Tina. So, of course, you've done journalism, and then you've written these wonderful award-winning books. And I would say of the 5, my favorite is Ugly Ways, because a lot of times I'll say, they sure got ugly ways.
Ugly Ways. Well, we were thinking about reading. I couldn't decide. Ugly Ways is a good book to read, but Ugly Ways is also a wonderful book for book clubs. You know, there's so much to unpack about mothers and daughters, and oh my goodness, when I was on book tour for Ugly Ways, women would stand in line holding their little books right to their little, you know, chest. You know how we are about our books waiting, and they would lean down and tell me the most intimate heartbreaking stories
Mm.
about their mother and their life, because it gave, having a book is a safe place, you know. That's why book clubs are so popular. You start out talking about the characters, but you always end up talking about yourself.
Right.
Always end up talking about your family. And so Ugly Ways really showed me that books can change lives. It was really a really amazing discovery for me as a writer. You know, I thought I knew that, but I saw it, in black women sharing things that they had never shared before, which of course, keeping secrets will kill you. So I mean, that's something that we do. Yeah, we do way too much. So as a matter of fact, Wanda was my first editor. She's the one who stormed into my room at, I think it was sophomores or juniors. And she came. Wanda tells the story differently, but this is what happened. I'm sitting in the bed, I'm not playing bed quiz, but I'm studying or something, whatever. And we weren't roommates anymore because we were smart enough to not do that anymore. And she came in the room, boom, 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 and sat on the bed and crossed her legs and said, "You know what? You call yourself some kind of writer. I can't believe you're not even on the school newspaper." Of course, she was on the school newspaper, going to be the editor the next year. So she was really my first editor. So I went and joined the newspaper. It was true. And I found my love. I went, you mean to tell me somebody's going to let me go out as nosy as I am and ask people questions and then come back and write a story and they're going to put it in the newspaper and pay me on Wednesday? Girl, I was there. I was there. Wanda and I did a lot of firsts, and I was the first Black woman at the AJC, the Atlanta Constitution at the time. And so I went to a number of newspapers and I worked for a number of newspapers, but I really always wanted to write fiction. I knew that from the time I was a little girl. And I had my husband and my mate. He told me, he says, I tell you what, he says, you say you can't write and work, why don't you stop, get off your job, which I really love, and say, be serious about it. He says, I'll take care of us, while you write. And that's exactly what he did. So, I was, I got a book contract. I was lucky enough to have a mentor who had a William Morris agent. And so my first agent was a William Morris agent. And, I have one of those stories that's atypical. I think 2 publishers turned my book down. This was my first novel, and the third one picked it up. And that's not really, you usually have to go through a number of publishers, especially if you're a first-time author. They don't know whether they don't even know whether you can finish writing the book.
Right, it's true.
So they're taking a chance on you. So that's how I got to to my novels and eventually to the other stuff that we talked about.
All right, we'll dig into that. We'll dig into that a little more. So Wanda, after your days as a Spelmanite, you always knew that you wanted to be in news, because I believe you were on the newspapers even in high school, if I remember correctly.
I was an editor my senior year, and then I went to Spelman and joined the Spelman Spotlight staff and was editor my senior year. So I was all in for our school papers and had an internship between my junior and senior year in Providence, Rhode Island. Spent 3 weeks on Temple University's campus studying copy editing, journalism in the journalism program. So yeah, it was something that I always knew I wanted to do.
Wanda, tell them what you had in mind when you came to Spelman for what you wanted to do.
Well, Tina remembers this. I don't remember it that way exactly. Tina says Wanda always wanted to be the editor of a small paper in the South.
Yeah, it wasn't a small town paper. She wanted like a mid-sized paper.
Yeah.
She didn't want a big paper. She didn't want to be in charge of like the Atlanta Constitution. She wanted one that she could really. Wanda does not deal in anything that she cannot affect change in.
That's powerful.
It is, isn't it?
I like
anything until she tells them, look, I'm going to work on here and I'm going to change things. I'm going to bring up ideas. The reason you brought me on is for this, on boards. So she's always has to be, to join boards. And she's always picked very particular. And she always is very honest, said, I'm coming to change things. If you don't want things changed, you don't want me.
Right.
Yeah. I just had an experience recently. I joined a board here in Georgia. And I told them 2 years ago when I joined the board, if I can't affect change, I'm not going to be a part of it. And it came to that point, and I called Tina. I said, well, Tina, I think I'm off the board because they're not listening to me. And so I turned in my resignation a few days ago. But I do like to be in a position where I can make a difference and I can mentor people and bring other people along. And when I leave, I want to feel like I've done something. And sometimes that's worked out really, really well. And a couple of times it hasn't worked out really well. And, I left. And that's okay too. And I try to tell young people that I mentor, you stay as long as you need to stay. And sometimes to move up, you have to move out. And
I know that's right.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about like in your career as a journalist, I'm sure there would have been options to, perhaps go to some of the Black-owned newspapers, but your career was in mainstream newspapers. Was that a conscientious choice, or that's just how things landed for you?
No, it was definitely a conscientious choice. I remember telling my family when I was in 11th grade, because I had already taken 1 year of journalism class. And at the end of the year, I decided I wanted to be a journalist. And I remember telling, and whoever was in the kitchen at the time, I just sort of blurted it out. This is what I want to do in my life. And my grandmother said, well, Wanda, I don't know if I ever heard of any colored girls working for a newspaper before. But that's really what I wanted to do, because I had good training in high school. I had outstanding training in college, but even in high school, there was a journalism workshop given by the Dow Jones Newspaper Fund on the campus of Savannah State between my junior and senior year in high school. And it was led by some really outstanding professionals who came from, I don't know, Minnesota or somewhere up north. And they were journalists on daily papers. And so that was the influence. And while we had two Black papers in our community, I really saw myself as a daily newspaper journalist, and that's really what I wanted to do. And of course, I always thought I was going to be a reporter, because I love to write, and I like talking to people. I like interviewing people. I like Tina. I was nosy. They used to train us to say, if you have a nose for news. And I felt like I had a nose for news. But when I did this program at Temple University, it was in copy editing. And I applied for the copy editing program because I knew they had two internships, reporting and copy editing. And I knew what a reporter's job was because I had done it in high school and college. I didn't really know what copy editing was, but I applied, and you had to take a test. And our professor at Clark, what was then called Clark College, because we took all our journalism in Clark, because Spelman doesn't have journalism, didn't, and still doesn't. And he mentored me through the process of getting ready for the test. And once I got to Temple and I figured out what a copy editor really does, I fell in love with it. And I decided, this is where I want to go. This is the path I want to go. I don't want to be a reporter, which is very non-traditional. Almost everybody starts as a reporter if they're going into professional journalism.
Well, excuse me, Wanda,
you started as a copy editor too, didn't you?
Right.
Yeah, I was a copy editor. I kind of fell into it because I really didn't, know, that was the job that they, had an offering for. As a matter of fact, it was an internship for the summer. And if I worked out, it was going to be. But there were no other Black, there was one Black reporter at the AJC when I went there in 1971. And one of the things that I was thinking, Wanda, when you were talking about being a reporter, this was in the 70s, beginning of the 70s, and newspapers and TV stations were looking for Black faces. They really were. They wanted to have a reporter out in the community saying, I work for so-and-so, I work for so. So it made them look good, and it got a lot of Black reporters opportunities to go out. But like Wanda, I fell in love with copy editing. I thought this was great, So I felt Wanda chose the copy desk. I've kind of fell over it. I will tell you one thing. I think that our backgrounds in editing to begin with makes us much better writers. Don't you think, Wanda?
I think so, because we have this love of words, and we know how to use words. We love writing what we call headlines in newspapers, but it's really titles. And so as I was going, as we were doing the book, both my memoir, Coming Full Circle, and Meeting at the Table, we were writing the titles of chapters, and it just came so easily to us because we both had been headline writers. And so, like Tina, I was the first Black person, I think, at my first newspaper, which was in Providence, Rhode Island.
Wow.
And I got a telegram the Christmas holiday before I went to Providence. And so that would have been Christmas of '69. I was home in Savannah, and they sent me a telegram saying, you're going to go to the Providence Evening Bulletin for your internship. And you know what? I had to go find a map. I
You're like, where is this?
I'd heard of Rhode Island, but because in school you learn the capital of every state, and Providence was the
You said,
capital.
generally it was like up in that
It
area,
was
right?
way up there somewhere. It was way up there, and I had no idea. But I also, I didn't meet any Black people that summer. In fact, I remember writing a letter because all we did was write letters to my grandmother that summer, and I said, I saw another Black person today. I looked in the mirror.
Wow.
That was nobody. By the time I got back to Providence, I went back after I graduated. So I came back to Spelman, for a year, and then went back because it was the best job offer I had. And there were one or two other people. In fact, there was one woman in the building who worked in advertising who introduced me to my husband.
All right. So it all worked out. There was a reason for you to be.
Yeah.
There was a reason. Well, I just want to kind of moving forward, of course, I'm transitioning a little bit. Now, you all have had these wondrous careers separately and, maintained a friendship over all of these years and all of that. But what I find especially exciting is some of the things that have happened in the last few years. First, starting with the book, Meeting at the Table. So what was it that made you all come together to decide to co-edit this book of wonderful stories from women like Bishop Vashti Murphy McKenzie, Dolan Perkins Valdez, who I love, Keisha Lance Bottoms, Imani Perry, Anika Noni Rose, and others. So what was it that made you decide to write this book and bring these women together?
Well, I'll start because it started with a phone call. It was 2020. What was going on. My memoir had just come out in February of 2020. I was on book tour for about 6 weeks, and then things just shut down. And so Tina had sort of helped. She coached me through the writing process of coming full circle, and she wrote the foreword. She wrote a beautiful foreword in the book. And so, we were constantly talking about that. And then her husband passed away, of course, at the end of January 2020. And then COVID was just all around. So Tina just called me one day. She was in her grieving period. I was in my, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I got a new book. I don't know, I don't know what to do. Because I can't go on the road. I had a year-long book tour planned.
I have to say, we're old chicks and we know how to pivot.
Yeah, so I pivoted, and I was in the process, and this was in June. So it was after George Floyd was killed in, I think, May of 2020. And Tina called me one day and she said, "Hey, sweetie, how you doing?" And I said, and she had this cheerfulness in her voice, and I was not cheerful. I said, "I'm not doing well at all. I don't have a book."
I don't know if I ever heard Wanda say that. It really stunned me when she said it. But it also led me, to talk about how I was feeling, not just about my husband's passing, which he passed in January. Wanda's book came out in February. It was just like one thing after another. Yes. Then the pandemic shut down, so we were trying to pivot and go. But Wanda had a really wide book tour plan. She had to cancel airplane tickets, and we really had to make a pivot. But as I said, we're old chicks, and we decided, to pivot. So after about 3 months, I had been in touch with Wanda a little bit. We were, she was doing some virtual things, and we were sort of going along. So she had sort of pulled me out, and I was feeling kind of. I had never heard Wanda say that.
I said, I'm depressed. I'm just. No,
she said she was angry, she was depressed, she couldn't eat, or she was overeating. I mean, she had a whole list of things, and that's what really.
And then I said, and we got COVID, and we got people out there protesting all over the world. And I said, we're women of a certain age. I'm not going to get out there and protest, even with a mask. It's just not going to happen. And so we said, Tina said, well, what should we do? And I said, well, I have these white friends who are starting to call me and said, oh my gosh, I had no idea that all this racism that you've been talking about all this time is this bad.
Well, Marcie, now that I think about it, I think we probably all got those kinds of phone calls or at work or something. Anyone who had said they wanted to be anybody who was close to us, who was white. Yeah, exactly. So of course, Wanda's one of Wanda's territories is inclusion and diversity
Yes.
and all the rest. So she had been talking about it, she had been teaching it and talking about it even more, than you and I usually, talk about it among the people that we were there. So she was getting lots of phone calls.
And so then Tina said, well, what should we do? What can we do? And I said, well, you know what, Tina, let's do what we do. Let's do a book. I think it was me. I don't know. It might have been you. I'm not going to take credit for it if it wasn't me.
No.
But together,
we can share credit for
we
everything.
came up with this idea to do a book, and we talked on the phone about 4 hours.
Wow.
Tell what happened at the
June
end
12th.
Yeah, tell them what happened in that 4-hour period.
It was June 12th of 2020. And by the time we got off that phone call, because we did say, when you're in chaos, you can't think straight,
Right.
I had kind of forgotten that I had a published company. I really did, in that all the feelings that we were feeling in the 20s in 2020. And one of us said, well, what do we do? And the other one said, well, we write and we edit. And so the other one, whoever the other one was, said, well, let's do a book. It's kind of like, let's put on a play. Let's put on a show.
Right.
And we were talking about the things that we had in our hands. Wanda had just published a book. She had just pivoted and gone on a virtual book tour when the pandemic shut down. I had a publishing company. She had just published a book. So it just really made a lot of sense. And by the time we got off the call, we had decided everything, hadn't we, Wanda?
Yeah, we had the title. We had the title.
We had a meeting at the table.
Right. We had a list of people that we wanted. That list was probably 20 to 25 people. Some of them, said yes. Some were very busy and doing their own book or doing their own thing and couldn't contribute. One of them was Cynthia St. James, the artist. And when I reached out
to her artwork on the cover.
she said, I'm working on a book, but she said, I can give you the art for your cover. And she sent us 2 pieces of art. She said, just pick one. And we chose that one, the one you just held up. And
we had to cover the book before we had anything else.
We did.
All right.
We had the title and the cover. And then we just went from there. Then we just kind of split up the list, and Tina reached out to some people. I reached out to some people. Tina likes to tease and said, Wanda wrote these real formal emails and letters. Please.
I saw that.
Beautiful.
People up on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, I hit mine up on absolutely. Again, it shows you exactly who we are. Very, very opposite. But Wanda, we had really wonderful people who were just busy and turned us down. Ava DuVernay said she just didn't have the bandwidth to do it, but she said Onward, which is sort of her signature. Tarana Burke was working on a book, and she said she really tried. Tasha Brown, who in Georgia, who was doing in 2020 doing the work of the election, she tried to the very last minute, and finally she said, "I just can't." We were up against deadline, and she really wanted to. So many people wanted to, but we didn't have one person who said, "Well, this wasn't a good idea." I don't know. Everybody said this is a great idea. I wish I had time to do it, but I just can't. But the ones who said yes were the right ones,
And for those who haven't had an opportunity to read it, what kind of essays are shared in the book?
Well, Keisha, alphabetically, because, we listed them alphabetically. Keisha Lance Bottoms did a prayer for her children. And we really thought going into this that if we get somebody who's a politician, they're going to write about politics. Or if we get somebody who's a minister, they're going to write about faith. Or if we get somebody, and people surprised us. They wrote about subjects that had almost nothing to do with.
Tell them what we asked them in this beautiful letter. Wanda's laid out exactly what we wanted from them.
Well, we wanted them to write about their position as women in as far as race and culture and community, because that was the title of the book. But we did not tell them they had to write about their profession. We really never said that. We just wanted them to come up with their own story and their own idea. And we asked them, first of all, if they would do it. And second, we asked them to give us an abstract of about a big fat paragraph of what it was going to be about. And everybody, got that to us in a reasonable amount of time. We stressed to them that it was urgent, because I really felt like we have to get this book out by the end of 2020 because so much was going on in 2020, and we wanted it to be impactful because of the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and all the people that were,
endless list.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was going to go on forever. Who knew it's still going on today? Funeral of Tyree Nichols today. Yeah. So we just asked them to write about what they felt, and
we asked them to write from their heart. We asked them to write personal stories too. We asked them to write personal stories from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And Wanda has always insisted that in some way they give a path forward. They offer a path forward, because we just didn't want all these brilliant women and important women and smart women just to talk about their own experience. We wanted to sort of also let it be couched in the present and what was going on in the present. And also,
Marcie, that was in response to the concern we had at the very beginning, that people were calling us saying, how can we help? How can we be allies? What can we do? How do we learn about your culture, first of all? And then how can we help? And so everyone who wrote an essay was able to say, based on what their experience is, here are some things that if you want to help, you can do to make things better.
Right. And I just think the whole concept of meeting at the table in and of itself is powerful, because a lot of times we get pushed away from the table, and things like that. So for us to create
together at the table.
Right, exactly. So for us to create our own table and say, this is what we're going to talk about. These are the things that are important to us. Everyone had their own unique voice, and, to tell stories from their perspective, because that's the other thing. A lot of times, when people are asking about who are we or what do we need or, what's important to us, we're not all the same. So it's good to be able to, see and read and view those different perspectives.
Yeah. And in fact, in my memoir, I have a chapter called A Seat at the Table. And, it's a different kind of table. It was a business table. It was a table in a newsroom where when you're at the table in a newsroom, you're making the decisions about what's going to go on page one, what's going to go at the top of the page, what's going to go inside, what the headline is going to be, which pictures are being used, what's going to go online. You have a seat at the table, and you can make suggestions that will actually end up having an impact. And so it was important for us this table that we were creating. It was really important because now Tina and I had our own table. You're absolutely right. And we could say, here's who we want to sit at this table. And now we're really on a tour, virtual and in person, having meetings at the table all over the place with other groups, university,
high school students, everybody, high school students, college students, book organizations, museums. We're ready to have a conversation at the table or wherever. But I think one of the things that Wanda and I talked about was just this idea of the kitchen table. Of where you're accepted and where it's warm, the oven, keeps it warm, and and all the rest. And we hope to encourage people to feel that way about business tables where they are, where we feel so uncomfortable sometimes. We others are made to feel uncomfortable. You're not really supposed to be here. And if you're here, you certainly aren't supposed to say anything. And if you're a woman, really shut up. And so,
and if you're a Black woman, just don't even open your mouth.
Right.
What are you doing at the table?
Exactly. Like, who let you in?
Aren't you supposed to be serving us? Getting coffee? Oh yeah. But we one of the things that Wanda and I talk about all the time is our age and how we've gotten to a point where we know so much. Wanda and I will have all these conversations where, nobody else in the world will be interested in it because we're nerds, and newspaper nerds and all the rest. But, we're open to that kind of thing. We want people to be open to the opportunities that they see around them to meet at the table. And it doesn't have to be a kitchen table, but but meet with that kind of openness and warmth and and realization that you don't know everything.
Right. Well, that's actually a good segue, because we don't know everything, but y'all do. Your podcast, two old chicks who know a lot of I really love the podcast. It's kind of like what
Thank
we're doing
you.
right here. Is that now I'm asking questions, and in that case, you all are asking the questions. But I love it. It's a podcast. It's actually a video cast, I would call it, because we can actually view the two of you having conversations, with each other as well as with your special guests.
Yeah, except that we do it on audio. So we're on like Spotify and Apple
Uh-huh.
and all the other, and then it goes on YouTube a week after that. So
Okay, so you have both, so that's good because for those who are auditory, they can listen, and those who like visuals, that's
it's the numeral. It's the numeral two.
Right.
The numeral
Two
two.
old chicks.
Right. I think I have it at the
And
bottom.
a lady who raises chickens somewhere may come up at first, but we'll come up after her.
Wow. Yeah, I think I have it right at the bottom. It's been scrolling, so people know, kind of where to find you on Instagram and listen on YouTube if you want to watch them, and then of course you can also go to Spotify.
And
so
we add photos on YouTube, so that's the other advantage. Every week, whatever we're talking about, we'll just throw some photos in there too.
Right. Well, I think that's pretty awesome that you all are doing it for a couple of reasons. Number one, we kind of know you more as writers. And so to be able to listen to you and to hear your voices and to, learn your opinions and hear how you interact with others, that part is great. But then just the fact, and I'm going to say it because the name is Two Old Chicks, the fact that you are mature women with a lot of experience that have broken into a media format that a lot of younger people are getting involved in, but you've managed to come into it and find your own space and create your own niche. So how powerful is that? But what was it that made you all want to do a podcast in the first place?
Well, first of all, we did all the editing for Meeting at the Table on Zoom. 100%. In fact, until the book was at the printer, Tina and I had not seen each other for 3 years.
Wow.
We had not seen each other face to face for 3 years. Partly because,
but thank God for Zoom.
I know Zoom it saved us in so many ways. It created so many opportunities. So we did two things. One is we edited each, because we split up the list, and Tina edited some, I edited some. So she edited all her people on Zoom, and I edited all my writers on Zoom. And then we would get together at the end of the process after we both felt like the essays were in pretty good shape. And then we co-edited. We would go line by line by line with the writer, and then line by line. And so we had lots of conversations on Zoom. So when we finished the editing and the book went to the printer, we were still on Zoom. We were still talking every day on Zoom for hours. And we just talked about things.
Marcie, we used to do that when we were editing the book. After we have these editing, because you're still high. We would be so high from editing people's
and
books.
It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We're not talking about 2 to 5. We worked 7 days a week, almost 24 hours.
Full tilt Molly. Yeah. We started this conversation that we told you about on June 12th, and on November 30th, we had books in our hand.
Wow.
The final book.
That's
and
wonderful.
I have to tell you a story. When we got to we split up duties, and my duty was to write the gratitude and acknowledgments and gratitude. And those people had been so good to us and caring, and so I wrote it, and I had a good number, of paragraphs, but I said, this looks so short. I must be and the last thing I wanted to do was forget somebody. So I called Wanda. I said, Wanda, here, would you read this, what I've written, and tell me who am I missing? Because it's just so short. Wanda burst out laughing. I said, what you laughing at? He said, we did it all, Tina, ourselves. We don't have that many people to pay.
Right.
So we were going 7 days a week from June to November.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so at the end of it was at the very end of the process when we were waiting for the books to come to be mailed. They were at the printer, and we started just talking every day. And one night we talked about our faces. We were talking about, we were 70, what were we then? 71 years old?
2 years ago.
Yeah,
3 years ago. We were
okay,
70.
we were 70 years old.
Oh, God, we were youngsters, Marcie.
I know, right?
Just baby.
So Tina, we were talking about how we were taking care of our bodies and our faces. And so Tina ran to the bathroom or somewhere, or her dresser.
I got my face cream.
She brought all these
creams
creams in her hand. And so I ran to my dresser and I brought all the creams. And we sat there in Zoom, in front of Zoom, and we started, well, this is a cream that does for the eyes, and this is for the
exactly. Okay, you gotta get some vitamin C. But we did this. Sometimes we did this even after we were editing people. Remember, because we were so high we didn't want to go to bed. So after we had edited folks, we would just stay on and talk, and we talked about everything, our careers, and I would tell stories that we had never told each other before. It was just good. And
I was a fan of podcasts. I had been a podcast fan ever since almost the beginning, and I had listened. One of the ones that made the most had the most impact on me was Michelle Obama's podcast after her book Becoming came out. She only had 5 episodes, and I have a dog. I walk my dog twice a day, and I listen to podcasts. Sometimes I'm listening to books, but a lot of times I'm listening to podcasts. And I started telling Tina about podcasts, and Tina, I don't think at that time you were that familiar.
I don't think I never listened to a podcast.
Well, what exactly is
I knew what it was. I knew the people who had them. I knew about Michelle Obama. I think I maybe listened to the first one. You mentioned Michelle Obama. And so I didn't know, but it sounded exactly like what we needed, because we would say when we would be talking after these, on Zoom, gosh, I wish there was some young women on this call. They really need this information. We just even be talking about our first jobs and, how we had to work with men. And Wanda pointed out the other day that we didn't even have the term sexual harassment when we were sexually, harassed in the 70s. So, we would talk about that and just really lay down a lot of wisdom. And we would say, we really wish, we could share it. And Wanda said, hey, that's a podcast.
We need to have a podcast. Yeah. But we didn't know anything about how to do it. I said, Tina, I know we can do the content because we're writers.
Right.
But as far as the technical part, I had no idea how to do it. And so we just thought about it. We just kept talking about, well, when we get a podcast and when we get this, we're going to do this. And we just were looking. And I think we did. I don't even know if we made any phone calls at that point, Tina.
Well, we did. We looked around. We at Spelman, as a matter of fact, we had an event at Spelman, and we announced to everyone that we were looking for a producer for this podcast that we wanted to do. And it's so interesting. You do call things to yourself. I was having my regular. The 28th of the month is one of my little schoolgirls' dates. And every month she gets, we talk and find out what's going on. And I was just talking with her, and she had, she was in the film business. She was in the film business, and we were just talking, and she had a partner. She works at Morehouse, and as a matter of fact, she is the director of the Morehouse College Human Rights Film Festival. It's her baby, as a matter of fact. She created it and runs it. And so we were just talking, and I said, well, what you up to? She said, well, my partner and I, her business partner, we're looking for a podcast to produce.
Okay.
And I was like, what? What?
Tina called me. She said, you will never believe what I just found out.
Wow.
And so that was our first producer. She produced the first season. We're in season 3 now.
Yes. That's powerful.
And she stuck with us until we found another producer. She said that we needed producers. We needed a team to take us to the next level. And she couldn't do that. Now she had her own stuff, but she stuck with us. Bless her heart, Kara. She stuck with us, until we found the people that we like, the team that we have now. We have a sound person, a producer, and
video person, video editor.
Yeah.
So who are some of the guests that you've had? We've had
what you want.
Iyanla Van Zant. We've had Sybil Wilkes.
Yeah. Tom Joyner Morning Show.
We had Peachy Wimbush Polk, Wiz Khalifa's mom, who wrote a beautiful essay. It's the last essay in the book about our children and how we've turned them loose and how we have to, snatch them back. How we have to snatch them back. And I thought she was going to talk about music. So we didn't know what we were going to get, but everything that we got sort of fit together. How you're working on all the parts, and if you have a common theme, a common idea. And Wanda and I always stuck to our meeting at the table and African American women and their stories. And when we knew we stuck to that, we knew we would have a genuine book, a genuine, authentic book. Yeah, and we're very
the
proud.
podcast is a little more wide ranging.
Yeah.
Our main thing that we bring to the table in the podcast is wisdom. And so sometimes we interview people and sometimes we just talk and we share wisdom. We even have a feature that's at many of the end of many of the episodes called Dropping Some Wisdom. And I drop some wisdom, or Tina drops some wisdom, or sometimes most of the time, both of us drop some wisdom. And we just, sometimes we're on a phone call and I might be driving to the grocery store and Tina might be in the garden. That's her passion.
Yes.
And we talk on the phone and I'll say something and Tina said, "Oh, that's a wisdom. That's a wisdom. Write that down."
Write that down. And if Wanda's driving, sometimes we come up with show ideas. We'll be talking and I said, stop talking. That's all for the podcast. Save that for the podcast.
And so Tina will send me a text message because we 73 now. So I may not remember from the time I was at the grocery store till the time back in the house. I said, send me a text message. So we did a podcast just today, and that's how we got our main segment. And when I started putting the notes down for a script, I said, "Oh, what was that?" Tina texted me because I don't even remember what we were talking about. But fortunately, we use modern tools and we figure it out.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's what the old chicks do. You mentioned our title earlier, and Wanda and I are really intent on snatching back old. Old is just fun, it's even better than fine. But we don't want people to think we're too old, so we put chicks. We really parsed this title, okay? So we made ourselves chicks, and of course, Wanda didn't want to say on the air. So she said, "Oh, no. What I said was we ought to call it two old chicks two old some girls who know a lot of shit," or something like that. But I said, Wanda will never go for that because she won't say shit every week. As you can see, I have been a very bad influence on Wanda. Wanda's throwing shit here and shit there. I was like, oh my goodness.
Well, let me tell you how I was convinced. My daughter, who is now 40, so she was 37 at 38 when we were working on the book. I called her one day and I said, and she knew we were trying to work on the podcast and come up with a title. And I said, "Guess what Tina wants to call the podcast?" And I told her the title. She laughed out loud. She said, "Oh, Mom, all my friends listen to that podcast."
Yes. Because you're like, what in the world? You don't expect that.
That day, all of a sudden, Wanda was all in with it. Shelby is our arbiter, okay? Yeah. If Shelby thinks it's funny, if she thinks her girlfriends are gonna like it, she thinks the people at her work are gonna like it, we pass everything through Shelby.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, one other thing, because actually we're coming close to the end of our time together, believe it or not. But one other thing that you all did at the latter part of last year was you co-hosted or co-produced the Sea Island Writers Retreat, which I know, Tina, you founded it in 2004, but you all came together, and that was another joint project. So,
actually, I've been wanting to have one. We hadn't had one in a few years, but it's just a lot of work. It's just so much. It's so intensive, and you're dealing with people with their feelings and their writings and all the rest. And I had said a couple of times, it's just too much. I don't have my team anymore. And Wanda said, "Well, if you have it in Savannah, which is her home, or anywhere near Savannah, one of the Sea Islands there," she says, "I'll help you." And I know a promise from Wanda is a promise. So we just ran with it, and we had a wonderful retreat in November, the Sea Island Writers Retreat 2022. And we had you mentioned some of our instructors. We had Crystal Wilkinson, Dolan Perkins Valdez, Dawn Turner, who wrote three Girls from Bronzeville,
Nick Stone, and there was one other. We had 5 plus.
Regina Taylor.
Regina Taylor. Yes. She did screenwriting, correct? I know she's an actor, but she also does screenwriting.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. See, I know, even though I didn't come, I watch y'all. I know what you got going on.
It was really wonderful, and it's in such a relaxed, sort of setting. And also, it was in the Sea Islands, and the Sea Islands really speak to people of color. It was for women of color. We said for Black women. I think probably African American women, and we limited it to that so we could get nice and tight, on our focus. And it was.
We literally were living we lived in houses on one block that was like a few steps from the ocean, literally from the ocean.
Okay.
And so every day people could go out early in the morning before we started classes, or at lunchtime, or in the evening, and just, it was a little chilly because it was in November. It wasn't cold, but it was chilly. And people would just go put their feet in the water and stand there. I went out there one day and I looked, and there was somebody, I don't know if I can show this, but she was just kind of had her arms outstretched, facing the sun, and just soaking it all in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had an opportunity to go to the islands over in South Carolina a couple weeks ago, and same thing. It's like you're out there and understanding the history and the culture of those islands, and yeah, it's always a powerful experience. So I love that you all, have collaborated to do that, hoping for, aspiring writers or people who are writers that you will do it again so they can, jump in on that. So I'm sure.
Marcie, for so many years, Black writers had no retreats, had nowhere where, they could really feel safe. I don't want to go to upstate New York for retreats. And I'm a Southern girl. I want to go somewhere where it feels comfortable and relatable. And the Sea Islands are just that. I mean, no matter where you are from, if you have any kind of African ancestry or you don't, you can feel the energy that's there. And that's why I founded it in the Sea Islands. The Sea Islands had given me so much inspiration and so much comfort and so much pain as well, because there's lots of painful things here. And I just, I got all of that and I appreciated it so much. And I really wanted to share that with, with other writers, because it really did spur my writing. Being in the Sea Islands, I have to give it, I've been working on stuff, but when I got here, I really finished. I really started working seriously on,
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that you said that about the pain, because I was telling my mom or one of my friends about my trip on the South Carolina side recently. It's probably one of the first times that I was on that ocean and I didn't cry. Because usually when I go to the ocean like that, like if I go to Jekyll Island or, or Tybee Island, especially if I'm by myself, I get teary because I think of our people coming here and that being,
all that stuff. It just
all of that stuff, and that's the first thing that they saw, and maybe thinking they're back home, but they're really not. Yeah, I don't even think about it too much, but yeah, so I can definitely see where it's a place of, of pleasure and joy, but it also can be a place of pain. But you work through that and are able to put your work out and have other writers come and inspire them by being in that space. So I want to ask both of you all, and you can each answer this separately as our last question.
Okay.
For those who are here who are aspiring to write either as novelists or memoirists or even as journalists, what are one or two tips that you would advise them to do to get better at their writing craft? I'll go, Wanda.
Well, I learned a lot about writing from Tina, writing books from Tina. And one of them was process. Tina said, you have to have a process. And I didn't understand that at first, and I didn't have much of a process. For example, she told me, you might want to have an outline. And I was like, oh, no, I don't need an outline. I just started writing. I don't need an outline. And I found myself writing in circles. And I sent Tina the first 2 or 3 chapters. And I said, Tina, I'm stuck. I can't seem to get out of these chapters. I keep rewriting the same information. She said, did you have an outline? I said, no. She said, you might want to think about that. Because really what she said to me was, you write like a journalist, and I want you to stop it. You need to write like a narrative nonfiction writer.
Yeah, I wanted her to write like a memoirist. I wanted her to write, I wanted her to write nonfiction, which is different from journalism.
Having a process that works for you, that includes when you write, where you write, how often you write, and what your process is for writing is really important. And I had to learn that because it's very different. It is different from journalism. I'm a good writer in general, but journalism is different from writing a book, a narrative book. And I had to expand myself as a writer in order to write stories that were, in my case, true, because it's nonfiction.
And very personal stories.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Tina, what advice would you give?
Well, Wanda took one of mine, but I tried to share with writers what I call the 3 Ps, and one of them is process, meaning find out where you write the best, where you get your first right. You know, if you write really well at midnight and you got to get up for a job in the morning, you're going to have to find some way to work around that. You know, it's all about your process. How do you do this? And once you find your process, you've got to practice it. You got to respect your process. Respect your process. Again, you know, Wanda and I talked about it. Okay, outline, all the rest. You know, when she did all those things, she was respecting her process. And that's why she say things just start, you know, just start. Third P, the second P is, the first P is process. The second P is practice. Practice that. You know, write often. Tiari Jones gave me a real wake-up call. She was on one of the, when she was, you know, really after American Marriage, and she was on, I think, the Jimmy Fallon show, and I never looked at that, but I knew she was going to be on, so I stayed up for it. And he asked her, you know, what should you write every day? And I've been telling my students for years, you really got to write consistently. You really got to write every day if you really are interested. And she says, you know, that was such a privileged viewpoint to say you write every day. So people can't write every day. People got jobs, they got babies, you know, they taking care of their elders, all the rest. And what you want to do is to write consistently. Not every day, but don't let enough 5 weeks go by, even though 5 days go by. You know, you got to write consistently, and you got to respect when you respect your process, everybody in your house will start respecting your process. You've got to teach them, no, don't interrupt me. I'm writing now. This is my writing time. Right. Well, I don't want to go to the movies. Your girlfriends are going to try to pull you to the movies. I don't know what it is. When you start writing a book, everybody wants to distract you from it. And you've got to be aware of that. You got to say, you know, got to push aside those people who say, oh, yeah, you know, you ain't write no book. You my sister. You know, you threw up in the back seat when you were 5 years old going to Florida. You know, family is like that. Am I right? What does that have to do with anything? But so you can't listen to them. So you have to listen to the right people. And so the practice, the process and practice again. Those are people for me. Yeah. Keep doing it. You know, if you find yourself like Wanda was so smart. She saw that she was writing in a circle and she reached out to somebody. You know, there are people who have been writing books for years, right, Wanda?
Yes, but at least I had someone to reach out to, because I had not had the advantage of workshopping in the way that we did the workshop on top, you know, the Sea Island Writers Retreat. And then Tina reminded me, well, yeah, you did workshop, because we talked, every couple of weeks we would have a scheduled telephone conversation, and she would take me through all the things and share with me all the things, many of the things that we shared at the Sea Island Writers Retreat. But it was just the two of us on the phone. And I would go outside and sit on the patio, you know, on a good day with my notebook and get in the glider and just take notes. I filled up a notebook of just stuff that I learned from Tina during that process. And then I would come in and practice it a little bit. And then 2 weeks later, we had another meeting, and I learned another technique. And, you know, she told me to use Post-it notes and tape them up on the wall and put keywords on it. I mean, just little things that really made a difference. And just keep writing.
Wanda was you got to understand, Wanda was a quick study, okay? A very quick study. All I had to do is just say, oh, you might want to turn this way. And she turned that way, made the outline. Next thing I knew, she was talking about
it just started coming out. Some nights I would sit and write 5,000 words, and then one night I remember writing 10,000 words. And
in a night.
I was like, oh my God, it was like 4:00 in the morning. And I had been writing until from about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Wow. And I just kept writing. I may have stopped once to go to the bathroom, but I did not eat. I did not cook dinner for anybody. I just forgot I had a husband in the house.
Wasn't that just the most wonderful thing in the world? And
I have to say, I remember it was a chapter on USA Today that I wrote. Now, you know, I edited it down later, but my process is to just put everything there and then edit it down. Don't worry about, you know, it's too much stuff, or maybe it's 2 chapters later. But it was that USA Today story that I just couldn't stop writing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing. You know, it's been such a powerful conversation. And actually, I don't know if she was here earlier when I mentioned her book, but we have Courtney in the room. This is her book again, Passing Notes, who actually she was one of the best interviews of last year on the BGC Book Club. She's a superstar around here. So this is her book, but she is your Spelman sister. So hey, my sister, it's always a treat to see your faces and hear your stories and soak up all of your knowledge. And Courtney, you see I'm wearing a shirt. I'm a jackleg, but Spelman was my dream school, except I wanted to go to college for business, and Spelman is not a business school. That's probably the only reason why I did not go to Spelman, but I always support and stand up for the Spelmanites. So
thank you. We appreciate your Spelmanite in your heart.
In my heart, because I'm trying to figure out, okay, what kind of seminars? They got something going over there that I can go take a class.
Always stuff.
Yeah. So thank you again. Let me showcase you all's books one more time. Of course, Meeting at the Table. I know the light makes it hard, but you get an idea of Meeting at the Table.
As a matter of fact, you can get Meeting at the Table at downsouthpress.com.
Yes, downsouthpress.com. Y'all got that? So Google it, look this up, grab a copy of this. Because not only a beautiful cover, beautiful editing, of course, but each writer, each essay in here also includes a blurb about the writer as well as a picture of them. Like I said, I know the lighting is terrible, but you kind of get an idea. So, you learn a little bit about the people who wrote the stories as well. Yeah. And then, of course, Wanda, who was one of my first guests in 2020 when I really didn't know what I was doing. But coming full circle, this is available. And of course, all of Tina's books. Now, I promise this is the last question. Are you writing something else? Any more novels coming from you, Tina?
Well, that's funny. We just recorded the show, and I said that once again, Wanda, right? Because of Wanda, who shamed me into writing down my goals for 2023. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, what you been doing this weekend? Oh, she says, I've been thinking about 2023 and my goals, what I can do and what I can't do. I went, oh, hell, really? I said, you wrote all that down? So I said, so I wrote it down. And one of my goals is, Wanda had said to me that she was thinking about things that she really wanted to do. So she had to say no to some things that she kind of wanted to do.
That was one of my goals, to say no more often.
Very much. That is a goal. Yeah. We want Wanda to say no more often, and we want me to have more #fun. I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
What are you working on writing? Can we expect another novel from you?
Because of Wanda, I actually know that I am saying no to a couple of things because I really want some concentrated, consistent writing time so I can finish my 6th novel. It's about halfway done, I think. And, I wanted to get out in the world. I know, my readers wanted to get out in the world. And it's about a character who was in Baby and the Family, and it's 30 years later.
Okay. Well, there is an open door for you right here. So
thank you. I'll come back, please.
Yes, we need to see you again and again and again. So thank you so much. I'm gonna let you ladies go because believe it or not, we've gone over a little bit, but it's well worth it because I've enjoyed this conversation. I always love talking to you all, and I promise the next time I come that way to come visit my mom, I will try to connect with you all as well. Because actually, she went to Savannah State. Yes, I'll let you know. She went to Savannah State. Okay. So, so there is that connection that, we have as well. So thanks again. I look forward to talking to you all, and I'll let you all go. And then I'm just going to make a quick announcement about next week's show, and that will be it. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks again. Looking forward to talking to you. Mwah. Talking to you soon. And my best friend is in here, so she's like, yay! So to talk about friendship. So have a good evening.
Best friends rock.
Best friends rock. Absolutely. So
good night.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thank you. That was so much fun talking to 2 old chicks who know a lot of ish. I don't want the internet to ban me for cussing, but yes, that was so much fun talking to them. As I mentioned, I have known Wanda for several years, meeting her back at Savannah State several years ago, and then, met Tina as well. So it's really wonderful to be able to talk to them, to share with them, and for you all to know more about who they are and what they've got going on. So by means of what's coming up next, let me just share that with you for next week. Next week is going to be a different type of conversation. Our next guest doesn't have a book yet, but she is going to come on and talk to us about our cycles as women, and basically whether you are still in a space of having a menstrual cycle, or if you're in menopause, there are just certain things that we deal with as women, and those cycles and our life cycles and things like that. So our special guest for next week is going to be Dr. Carmen McNeil, who is the founder of Period of Empowerment, who's going to come on and talk to us just about those different things that we deal with as women, and just give us some helpful tips, maybe share a little bit that we can deal with our daughters or the younger women in our lives if we are at a stage where we're no longer, experiencing our cycles. So be on the lookout for that next week, same time, same station. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at this content. I can't wait till I hit menopause. Yeah, it's a thing. But hey, that's a process in and of itself. Take it from one who's been through it. It's a process in and of itself. So yeah, she's going to come on and just talk to us about our different our cycles, and how we can deal with that, as I already stated, whichever stage of life we're in. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. So thank you, everyone, for joining. I appreciate you. I know there are always other things that you could be spending your time doing, but you're here with me for this, particular broadcast and others, and I really do appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. So until that time, sisters, please continue to live well. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.